Ancient spirits of evil, transform this decayed form to Mumm-Ra, the ever-living!
It's morphin' time!
Thundercats are on the move. Thundercats are loose.
Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to my review of Wave 2 of Thundercats Ultimates. Now, this is the fourth video I've done for Thundercats. I did them in the order of release, so it was Wave 1, Wave 3, Wave 4, and then Wave 2. That way, for historical context, it makes sense, but if you're catching this now and you've only seen Wave 1, go check out 3 and 4 after this, because, hey, it's worth doing. But Wave 2 did come after Wave 4 because it was held up at the factory, because Super7 wanted to keep the line looking consistent with plastics to the Mattel figures, and so when they remade Wave 1, which is a lot of remakes of Mattel figures, they used the Mattel factory. They also wanted to remake Pumyra, and they also wanted to produce Grune, who hadn't been made before, and so they did that at the Mattel factory as well, and also Mumm-Ra the Ever-Living and Tygra got trapped there too. And they had to go through several revisions because Mumm-Ra's arms were in the wrong order, Tygra's arms were swapped at one point, Tygra's colors were wrong. This wave has gone through a lot. It's been a very long time waiting for this, and I'm glad it's finally here. So we got to take a look at these. We got some new stuff, we got some old stuff. It's going to be cool, it's going to be awesome. I'm excited this wave is here because now we get to move forward in normal number order. Hopefully like Wave 6 doesn't ship before Wave 5 or anything like that. But let's get to it. Thundercats Wave 2 begins now. Alright, so we're going to start with Pumyra. Pumyra was part of the new Thundercats that are introduced in Season 2 with Lynx-O and Bengali. Now this is interesting because she is actually a redo from the Mattel line. Slipcover a little tight there, but here we got Pumyra. Back of the packaging, we do have new artwork of her, which is great. I am glad that Wave 2 onward has the unique art. It's much better than I think the generic art of Wave 1. A super agile climber, Pumyra is known for outstanding leaping abilities. She is a true asset to the Thundercats because she has a great understanding of medicine and serves as their healer. While she is skilled in combat, Pumyra tends to first solve conflicts without fighting. Instead, she leans towards compassion and working on creating compromise. However, when combat is necessary, she uses her whipcord, which launches pellets and spheres, similar to an ancient sling. And she was released in the Mattel line. In fact, this is the last update to the single-pack Mattel figures. So seeing them side by side, there's actually a lot of differences. It's not just, oh hey, we added an extra head or some accessories. This is sort of a different figure in a lot of ways, but there it is, the packaging comparison, and on the back, we got that. Now, interestingly, much like Jackalman, they use the same bio. So there you go, there's another reused bio there, but not a problem at all. So here we have Pumyra, and what's really nice about this figure is that we haven't gotten any of the female characters so far, mostly because Chitara was supposed to be in Wave 3, but Pumyra here is actually a redo, but also not a redo, if that makes sense. So this is a character that Mattel released in their line, and she was actually kind of a surprising pick of the Mattel line. But Super7's gone back and basically kind of sort of redone the whole figure. If you did not want to rebuy Pumyra, you're not missing out too much in the accessory department, nor in the looks department. So while, first of all, I want to say I think that this Pumyra looks better overall, just as a figure, I think she turned out much better. It's not to say that the previous one was that bad. So Super7 did do a lot of tweaks on this. I want to go over them here. So first things first, here's the Mattel Pumyra. You can see that this one is a little bit shorter. It's very minor, but it's just to sort of fix the height. The head sculpt is also different. So this one has kind of a different look. This one looks closer to what I think Pumyra would look like. And then they've redesigned the torso. So on the Mattel one, it just had a waist swivel, and there was nothing in the torso, whereas on the Super7 one, she's got a waist swivel and an upper torso swivel, so that helps out with some of her poses. There was one change I don't like on the Super7 one, and that comes to her belt. So her belt comes off to be her sling. On the Mattel one, it just came off. It was pegged in on the side here, which, you know, works pretty good. Yeah, you just peg it in, it you know, kind of floats a little loose. I don't mind that too much because with the Super7 one, it's pegged in a lot better and it doesn't move as much because it's actually slotted into 2 holes. Now on the back, I think this is fine. On the front, when you have her without the belt on, you have this hole that sort of glares out there. So I don't really like that too much. I would have preferred, You know, the extra peg in the back to keep it in place would have been good. I don't think we needed a peg on the front. That's a personal preference. I know that won't bug everybody, but typically I want to display her with the sling, so having the belt on at all times would be weird. So, you know, it's just one of those things. It's not perfect, but, you know, of all things, it's not that bad. But that is something that I think the Mattel one, I liked the looser belt better. But you can see that they're very different in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously, the Mattel one had the pinned joints. The Super7 one has the pinless, which is actually the first of the redos to go from pinned to pinless. So it is sort of a new figure in a lot of ways, but, you know, sort of different in others. And then the colors, of course, are different because it's just how they've done the rest of the Ultimates. So because she is the first female figure of the line, let's go over the articulation. So her head, left, right, side to side, a little up and down. Shoulders move out. They move 360. Actually pretty tight on things considered. This was a wave from the Mattel factory. Oop, to the point, or I can't. There we go. That was weird. It got kind of like stuck back there, but yeah, there we go. Bicep swivel, elbow bend. I don't think, yeah, the elbow swivel is separate from the bicep. The wrists move in and out, and they rotate. Like I mentioned, the upper torso moves, the waist moves, the hips move out, and because the skirt is cut, you can actually get a pretty good flex on that. It's cut on both sides, so she can actually do the splits, which is pretty cool. Legs move forward and back, thigh swivel, knee bend, and then a knee swivel as well. And then the ankles move forward and back and left and right. But that is pretty much it for articulation. And she does come with quite a few accessories, so let's take a look at those. And then here is her hand assortment. So we've got open hands, fists, and then gripping hands. So here's our alternate head. This one's a more intense, ferocious expression. So here's Pummyra's sling, and like I mentioned, again, you take the belt off for this to be accurate, and then there's that peg hole. It's gonna continue to bug me, but here's her sling. Similar sculpt to the Mattel one, where it's got the, you know, two sides of the tail and the three, like, canister ball things that are, you know, kind of explosives or whatever. And so she can kind of have this action pose where she's sort of mid-swing, swinging this around. It looks pretty good. It works pretty well. So Pummyra comes with this four-pointed boomerang-like weapon, and it's cool, but I'm not exactly sure where it's sourced from. The Mattel figure came with one as well. Ironically, the Mattel one was like a much sturdier plastic. This one, for whatever reason, is just really rubbery. I don't know if that was a Super7 design choice or the Mattel factory that produced these kind of screwed over Super7 on this wave, but that is, you know, it's for some reason rubberier than the Mattel one. But I'm not exactly sure where this is from because I've seen every episode of Thundercats. I don't really remember Pummyra throwing a boomerang. I've checked all the wikis, I've checked multiple sources, and outside of like watching every episode she's in, which is I think like 18 or 20 episodes, which I just didn't have the time for before shooting this review. I don't know where this is from, so if someone wants to school me in the comments and say, hey, that was from this episode, I will totally take your word for it and also go watch the episode again because I never need an excuse to watch Thundercats. But I think the Mattel one came up with this, and it's included here. So here is the Totem of Dara from the episode Totem of Dara. I think Pummyra wasn't in that episode. Anyways, she came with this on the Mattel figure, and once again, the Super7 version is a soft rubbery plastic, whereas the Mattel one was a harder plastic. Again, not sure if that was a Super7 design choice. I doubt it. Probably just something mixed up at the factory. But the Totem of Dara, it's a cool accessory. It goes with the Treasures of Thundera, but it's weird that it's from an episode that she didn't come with. So I guess that's more on the Mattel one than this one, but still a weird choice all around. Here's a quick size comparison with Pummyra to Lynx-O, and I know that there was a corrected scale thing that was supposed to be happening. There is some weird scale things happening, and I'm not sure if Pummyra was really shrunk down enough or what the exact scale is. 80s cartoons, they're not exactly great on scale. They look fine. I mean, when everybody's posed in battle poses, it's going to be great. So much like with the other version 2s of Wave 1, Pummyra is a good upgrade, but not necessarily a necessity for everybody. And I especially think that overall she's better proportioned. Her legs are less long, if that makes sense. And yeah, I like her more as a figure. But if you already had the previous Pummyra, it's going to be a little bit of a difficult choice if you're not all in on everything for this line. So next up we have Tygra. But there he is, looking pretty snazzy. It's nice to see Tygra in this style because he was in the Bandai line, which I mentioned in the Wave 1 review. On the back, new art and a very short bio. Tygra, Lion-O's counsel and trusted lieutenant, is the oldest Thundercat, cool-headed and gifted with a scientific mind. He is a master of the bolas, a whip-like weapon that can actually make him invisible, and he has the ability to put on convincing illusions into the minds of others. Interestingly, he is supposedly the oldest according to this bio, even though I always thought he was younger than Panthro. Anyways, let's take a look at Tygra. Okay, here is Tygra. Big, deep breaths, calming feelings, curious thoughts. Okay, so this figure has had a lot of problems for multiple people that gotten it, and it's affected pretty much everybody in one department specifically, paint. There was an interview published recently with Super7's Brian Flynn, who's the owner of the company, and the Fwoosh, who interviewed and talked about this. There was some bad QC problems with Tygra here, and I've kept him at a distance so you can't see him yet. There was discussions about, there's a missing paint app on all of them. There is paint errors. Mine has a backwards forearm. There are some issues with this poor guy, and Super7 normally, they'll try to correct things when they can, like they did with Panthro Shorts and Jackalman's neck, or things like Chitara where they got it remade. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances, Brian Flynn from Super7 has said there is basically nothing they can do about this because Wave 2, much like Wave 1, was produced at the same Mattel factory, or the same factory that Mattel used for their Thundercats line. And like I had mentioned previously, Wave 3 was at a different factory, and Wave 4 was at a different factory, and that factory normally produces Super7 stuff like their Reaction, and their Ninja Turtles Ultimates, and all the other Ultimate stuff. And, I mean, Wave 3 and 4 have been way better, and what kind of sucks about getting Wave 2 after Wave 4 is that Wave 2 sort of feels like a giant step backwards, which I don't think is Super7's fault entirely. They have said, when they got their paint master for Tygra, he had his elbow pad painted in. When the final production pieces happen, it's not. This part here should be blue and a little like strap sort of paint detail around. That didn't happen. And the QC, I imagine, is a similar thing. According to Brian Flynn, the factory, they cut ties with the factory after Wave 2 was in the production queue because of how long everything was taking and all this other issues they were having. They cut ties with that factory, which means they have no leverage when saying, hey, you need to fix this, you didn't produce it right, because the factory is just like, well, you don't do business with us anymore, where you don't have to do anything. Unfortunately, that means that Tygra here, while I think is structurally a great figure, paint-wise is a disaster, and that's because everybody's got some form of QC issue. And then I also have a backwards forearm. I can fix this, I just wanted to show it on camera first. So let's talk about the bad things before we talk about the good. First of all, mine's got a mark here of some paint. I don't expect perfect paint. It's noticeable here. It's missing some red there. It's just some major paint slop issues. You can see around the blue part here into the orange, there is just a lot of fade. It's just sloppier than I normally expect. And then the biggest one is the toes. The toes got scratched in assembly, which is funny because my LJN Tygra doesn't have scratched toes. But my Super7 one, okay, he has on the other foot. It's essentially the same problem, just due to his foot design. Muscle shading is tricky because it sometimes just comes out looking dirty. This comes out looking a little dirty. This just doesn't even look right on the back. Yeah, there's another mark there. Looking at this guy, his paint is less than spectacular, and that just bums me out. Don't mind the colors. I think the colors are fine. I like the colors. That's not my problem. My problem is just the QC. I mean, I'm glad that Super7 just sort of came out and said, hey, sorry, like, we just couldn't do anything about this. Here's the circumstances. And there's a lengthier explanation. I'll even link that interview so everyone can go check it out. So what I appreciate about Super7 is that sometimes you do get a figure that comes out kind of a bum. Sorry, Tygra, you just didn't turn out as great as some of the others. There was a chance to fix it. I'm sure they would have taken it, but it sounds like there wasn't, and that's just the unfortunate reality of some of the situations with manufacturing. So for hand options, we got the in and out hands, the up and down hands, and the clawed hands. So here's Tygra's alternate expression. This one's a more of a face. I don't know what to call it. I like the calmer, smirkier Tygra, because most of the time, even in intense battle, this guy is like calm and happy. So pretty much all of Tygra's accessories are his whip. So this is the closed version of the whip when he's got it just kind of like collapsed. Pretty cool stuff. I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's 3 balls on top of a stick. God, when I say it that way, it sounds weird. It's his whip in the closed form. So Tygra's first whip option is this fully extended one, which just looks really, really cool and dynamic. It is a little bit limited because it is not a bendy wire or anything. This is a solid piece of plastic, but it definitely gives that kind of like he's whipping it back and cracking the whip thing. And the other version of the whip that's included is this sort of rope version. So it is rope, it's tied on 2 ends here. I like that it's got the plastic piece with the beads on it, because I think it would have been tricky to have the rope with the little beads on the end. It's just full rope, so it works. You have definitely options with the rope, and I especially like it being kind of wrapped around villains. It sort of works better than him just holding it. If he's just going to be holding it, I'm going to give him the big plastic one, because then he'll have more dynamicism. But as you can see, it wraps around, and because of the plastic bolo piece, it actually has an anchor point to add to it. So if you had just the rope itself and not like anything to anchor it at the end, it'd be harder to get on the figure. And here we have the Super 7 Ultimates Tygra with the LJN Tygra. It's funny because both of these guys have worn paint. It's just this one was with time and this one was factory didn't treat it totally right. And if you're wondering about the elbow pad, that's what I was talking about. As you can see, that part here was supposed to be painted on here and it just wasn't. Of course, here's Tygra with some of the initial Thundercats. I think for a lot of people, Cheetara kind of rounds out the main core warrior part of the initial Thundercats in the show, and that's definitely a thing we're getting closer to. So Tygra is not without faults, that of the factory, and I still like him because he is a figure of Tygra. I'm not going to hate on a figure of this line, but yeah, I'm going to add him to the pile with Panthro and Lion-O and Jackalman of, hey, if they did a version 2, I wouldn't mind buying it. But I obviously do want them to continue forward and get through all the main characters, and maybe we can circle back around and go, hey, here's your second version Tygra, and he's got better paint. The thing is, like, you know, with this line, the miracle of getting them is enough for me. But as a reviewer, I do have to say that, you know, in terms of the quality control on the paint, it's just, it sucks. And it sucks that there's really nothing we can do about it. So we just have to push forward. You know, I'm not going to hold this against Super 7. If stuff like this were to happen to the new factory as well, I would be like, okay, maybe there's a problem with the company itself, but I don't think it's Super 7. I really do think it's the factory because we've already had Wave 3 and 4, and I'm actually kind of glad we already had Wave 3 and 4. This is sort of fortuitous because we know that things are getting better, but we need to push forward and talk about Grune, which you can hear in my voice I'm not super excited about. All right, next up we have Grune. Grune here was the other promised figure from the Mattel line that never happened, like Jaga. But here we got Grune the Destroyer. Grune was once a Thundercat, but he became contemptuous of the Thunderians he was sworn to protect, and betrayed them. Vanquished by Jaga in an epic battle and exiled, he came to Third Earth and terrorized its inhabitants. When Grune died, his tomb was magically sealed to imprison its malevolent spirit. Freed in the present, Grune ferociously assaulted the Thundercats until he was again defeated by Jaga in ghostly combat. I want the record to show that my love of Thundercats does not blind me to toys being imperfect. And by imperfect, I do mean not great. Grune here is the first figure that when I shake the table falls over. And what's unfortunate is I'm not exactly sure what's to blame here. Okay, so let's talk about Grune. Grune was one of the proposed Mattel figures. I don't know if this is the Mattel mold. It's definitely different because there's no pins. I just got to talk about this off the bat. His QC is awful. On mine, the left hip is loose, as you can see. Again, the thing with joints, are they really loose is when you shake them, but then how well do they stand? Not great. Reason why, his knee's also loose. It's not like fully pinned in correctly. You can see the disc is not lined up. Yeah, so he's just got a really loose knee. His ankles are really weird. I don't want to make all these videos, so yep, there he goes. I don't want to be like sitting up here criticizing figures, but Grune here is less than spectacular. Much like with Tygra, I'm pretty sure this is chalked up to Mattel Factory just didn't care about Super 7 anymore, and then just kind of rushed the figures out, you know, while also taking forever. I know there's a giant conundrum, but Grune here is not great, and I don't think it's structurally. I think this is all factory error stuff. Design-wise, I think he's okay. I'm just not enjoying this figure pretty much whatsoever. So if I was going to say, like, there's ever a figure in this line where I was like, you know what, just don't buy it, I don't know if I can trust Grune. I've looked at other reviews. Other people have been having loose joint issues with him too. And because he's bigger, he is bigger. I mean, he's not normal Thundercat size. Like you can see, he is larger because he's got these longer legs to make him taller. I mean, he is bigger. And I don't know if he's as stable. It's funny because Snowman of Hook Mountain from Wave 4, totally stable. Grune, not so much. But I'm going to try to push forward. So if this figure just falls over during the review, just know it's all this left leg because it's just messed the heck up. Again, luckily I haven't had that many issues with Wave 3 and 4. Hardly any QC issues, so that gives me a better sign for Wave 5 and onward. But again, we're backpedaling because this wave was lost to time. So anyways, Grune here, let's look at his head sculpt. This is the Spirit of Grune look. So this is when he got resurrected on Third Earth. So, you know, there's the single tusk head, the torso without the Thundercat symbol, that sort of thing. Details are nice. I like the armband. Legs are also pretty good. I mean, he looks fine. Articulation's pretty much the same as you expect. I think these hips have more motion though, which is kind of neat. And the elbow, like this elbow bent swivels here as well as at the bicep. So there's like, you know, double the joints there. The accessories for this figure, there is some things to also go over is that swapping out this torso piece is really tricky. So for those that don't know, the episode where Grune debuted, there was a flashback, and the flashback, he was a Thundercat. So he has the Thundercats logo here. It's before he pretty much went rogue. So they give you an entirely separate torso for this, which is great. It's a rubber overlay, similar to Master Universe Classics. So you got to pop it off here and pop it off there. And then it's got to squeeze over not only his arms, but his biceps. I've done this a couple times. I found it best to just remove the head. You're going to have to anyways. But I did want to show this on camera as opposed to normal part swapping because I found there's a trick to this. Get his arms like this, as far as forward as you can, and then just push him through like this. So basically, it's not too bad. But when I struggled with it at first, I was trying to do like the shirt thing of like one arm then the other. But if you just line up straight forward and kind of give it a push, it will come off like so. Also of note, his torso underneath is smaller than the standard torso. So like here is Lion-O's, for example. You see it's a little bit wider. This one is seemingly the same sculpt as a He-Man Master of the Universe figure, because he's got like the nipples molded in. But it is a bit smaller, so he looks a little weird. I mean, if you want shirtless Grune, there you go. He looks a little strange. But yeah, same thing when putting the other vest on. You want to just get this lined up, get one hand in, and then just push and push and push and push. And actually, it goes on a little bit easier than it comes off. And boom, there you go. And then once you got that on, then it clips into the back here. And that pegs together. And then this pegs together as well. Come on. I said you'd peg together. Peg together already. All right, so then once that's all lined up, now you got that. And you can put his alternate head with the two tusks before one of them got broken off in battle. And then boom, there you go. There is Grune, looking all saber-tooth tigery and awesome. So I do like the options for the alternate torso piece. I like how it's an entire torso, so it looks really clean. Would I, you know, if this figure had better QC, I'd probably get a second one just to have a flashback Grune. But for me, I'm just going to stick with the one. I do like the look of this. I like that there is the option. I don't think Mattel necessarily would have come with that. This is neat, and I do like it. So having the alternate parts for both, Jaga and Grune can be the buddies they used to be, or they can be locked in the epic combat that led to the destruction of Grune. So hand options wise, he's got the in and out holding hands, the up and down holding hands, and the clawed hands. Forgot to mention this with Tygra, but the clawed hands are yet again a little softer. I'm just going to chalk that up to the Mattel factory versus the normal Super 7 one that 3 and 4 were produced at. Grune comes with a Sundranium mace. This was made of the material that drains the Thundercats' powers. He's a Thunderian and it doesn't drain his powers, which is a little weird, but we're just gonna roll with it. But it's a pretty cool mace nonetheless. Grune comes with a pair of knuckle dusters. These are based on the ones that one of them came with the LJN toy, not two, but they gave him two here, and these just clip into the hands. Like you just wedge them around. They go into the open hands. Pretty cool. Gives them some variety in weaponry, which is always nice. Grune also includes the broken version of the Sword of Omens, which pretty much happened in the show to show off Bengali's blacksmith skills, which I think may have been one of the only times they did that, but this is the broken version of the Sword of Omens from the episode where it got broken. So it's kind of a neat accessory because this was directly caused by Grune. So there you go. So the last couple accessories for Grune aren't ones he'd really hold, but are really important. It's the seal on Grune's tomb, which you can see is the seal that once broken, like so. Yeah, see, they give you broken and irregular, Grune would be released, and then he'd go fighting the Thundercats again. So overall, I like the character of Grune. I want to like the figure, but the QC is just all over the place. So while I do think he's a nice figure, his QC is sort of making him like, I mean, look at that. He'll flop backwards. His stability is the biggest issue. And it's something that, it's weird to say this, I already know this line can do better and will do better in the future because we've already gotten wave 3 and 4. Don't mean to harsh on Grune. I just think that, you know, compared to Tygra, Tygra's paint issues, Grune is QC issues. My goodness, is there any other figures in this wave? And will they not have QC issues? Let's find out. And then lastly for this wave, we have Mumm-Ra, the Ever-Living. Now, if you can see based on my hand, he's a bit bigger than the others. For example, here's Grune's box. So maybe a lot bigger. Taller, wider, thicker. Not as thick as Slythe. I don't have Slythe's box on me right now, but this thing is huge. I was actually kind of surprised in a lot of ways. Now, while the other figures were 45 bucks a piece originally, Mumm-Ra was 60. So he is quite large. There he is. We'll be doing plenty of size comparisons in a minute, but you can see he fills out that package quite nicely. Here's Mumm-Ra, looking fantastic. This is one I think that a lot of people wanted, especially after we got the Mummy one from Mattel. Giant artwork of Mumm-Ra, as well as his bio. Mumm-Ra is the Thundercats' evil adversary. Mummified and otherwise weak, he is energized and made immortal as the servants to the spirits of evil, who grant him magical and transformative powers to carry out their wicked bidding. Okay, so it is the same bio as the Mummy Mumm-Ra figure. It's there. It's the same wording, which is kind of interesting. So here is Mumm-Ra, the Ever-Living. Question number 1, is he good? The answer is yes, because this is actually the best figure of the wave. Let's look at him. Let's look at him and figure out why. So first of all, here's his wonderful head sculpt. Crazy mummy stuff flying about. Nice neutral expression, you know, pretty much like a scheming, discussing Mumm-Ra. I like his chest symbol being a separate raised molded piece from the chest. Pretty nice. The mummy straps, for those wondering, are a overlay, which means they won't get in the way of articulation, which is wonderful. Same thing with the ones hanging down and about here. They are held in place pretty good, but they don't get in the way of articulation. Skirt as well doesn't get in the way. And down here we have some little minor QC things, but compared to stuff we were seeing on Tygra and Grune, it's not too bad. How about joints? Is there any flop? No. His hips are actually pretty solid. Now, does he stand to the plop test? Pretty good. How about the shake test? Also pretty good. A little bit of rocky if you shake it that way. But overall, this guy has been standing for me pretty awesome so far, which is impressive because he is quite large. For example, here is Lynx-O. So you can see Lynx-O is kind of our standard sized figure, and Mumm-Ra is towering over him, as well as towering over his mummy self. Now let's talk about the cape, because the cape has to be assembled. Here's the cape. It comes with red on the outside, black on the inside, so the black is nice and smooth on the inside, which is really cool. But the stitch work here is done because there is a wire here, up through here, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. This allows you to have posability and allows the cape to stay on him while you move his arms about, which is really cool. Now attaching it, you're gonna have to pop his head off, which isn't too hard. Actually, I thought it would be tougher, but there you go. Pop the head off. Back here, there is this blue peg. You want to pull that out. Now, this blue peg will go through the cape and into, watch out for the mummy wraps, those can fall off. So you want to plug in the blue peg here, and you don't want to push it too hard because it might pull through, but you want to push this into his back. Okay, so once you have that blue peg lined up, you want to peg it into the back, into that hole. Get it in as much as possible. Careful not to pull this through because it will end up popping off the peg. So you want to get the peg lined up, the peg into the hole, then put the head on top, because the head's, the back head skirt thing, that'll hold that down pretty nice for the most part. This thing isn't perfect, but it's probably the best they could do. So you want to take these little gold pegs, the lower ones, again, put it through the hole, plug it into the arm. Let's see if we can line it up. It's got to be kind of facing forward like that so it'll actually hold onto it. Same thing for the other side. Yeah, you could probably squeeze the cape over the pegs instead of taking the pegs out. But I recommend taking the pegs out because if you squeeze it over the pegs, they could fall off easier. So then there you go. And now when you move the arm, the cape goes with it. So elbow bend, cape moves with it. You know, see how it flexes with the actual the elbow there, because there's the cape. So when you're moving this around, when you're moving his arms, his biceps, whatever, it being anchored in 3 points means it's always attached to the back of him, which is fantastic. So I think the cape works. I think I don't know if it's perfect because it does pop off sometimes when I'm just like intensely posing. But you know, if you pose it, set it, it's gonna stay. It's not falling off just from gravity or anything. And that's pretty nice. So yeah, I like the cape overall. And yeah, this figure's pretty great, but he does have some accessories. Starting with one I wouldn't call an accessory, but I would instead call a pack-in. He's counted as an accessory, but he really makes this a 2-pack. Let's give him a title card. All right, first up we have this devious little scamp, Mumm-Ra. Mumm-Ra was introduced to make Mumm-Ra less scary because apparently parents complained that he was too terrifying, so like, give him a dog. This dog is so frickin' evil. This dog is interesting because they introduced it to make Mumm-Ra seem like lighter, I guess, but Mumm-Ra actually ends up becoming kind of a villain of his own in some ways. It's kind of amazing what this guy ends up doing. But what's really cool about this is I thought he might be a static piece, but he actually does have a neck swivel. He's got each of the legs articulated, and the tail actually adjusts too, just a little bit, not much. That may not be intended. Maybe don't move the tail. Anyways, the legs move and his head moves, which is just great. I like it. Aw, look at Mumm-Ra and his dog that he's going to totally use to exploit the ambitions of multiple groups in order to fight each other. Aw. Hands-wise, Mumm-Ra has fists, he has open hands, and he has gripping hands. So here's his alternate head, which is the more expressive one. I absolutely love this more than the standard, and it's probably the head that's going to stay on him pretty much the rest of the time. And here's the extra head that came with Pumm-Ra, the larger one, which is to just basically replicate one shot from the Pumm-Ra episode. And you know what? Including an extra head with that Pumm-Ra figure for that one episode is pretty nice. And here is the Sword of Plundar in its full form. The Mummy Mumm-Ra came with just the hilt part. This is the full sword. Just looks fantastic. I can't believe how large it is. It always is impressive because it's bigger than Mumm-Ra himself, and he's already pretty big. This last accessory is related to the mighty gyroscope from the Return to Thundera 5-parter, and this is, I believe, the regulator. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is the regulator for the mighty gyroscope. There is the Super 7 Ultimates Mumm-Ra next to the original LJN one, who is missing the helmet and the sword and all this other stuff. But these two side by side, just to kind of see an idea of just how things have changed. So overall, the Mumm-Ra Ever Living and Mumm-Ra 2-pack, as I'm calling it, is great. Even with some of the weirder QC stuff, like, I mean, this is a heavy weapon, so the wrist joint being a little loose, it kind of sucks, but it does balance, at least. Yeah, he's doing much better than Tygra and Grune in this wave. This is the best figure Wave 2, by far. No competition. Absolutely love it. So overall, Wave 2 is a nice addition to the lineup, even with the QC problems. These are still the only figures in this style for Grune, Tygra, and Mumm-Ra Ever Living, and Mumm-Ra. While there is another option for Pumyra, I do think this is the better option. So while for hardcore fans, this will be a wave to pick up, if you're kind of casually picking things up, just keep in mind just some of the quality control that comes with Wave 2 compared to some of the others. Again, as I've already reviewed Wave 3 and 4, they are much, much better than Wave 2, and that gives me hope for the future, and I'm not so worried about what we have coming up. But that being said, I do still like having these in the collection. And speaking of the collection, I thought, why not, since we finally got caught up with all the reviews, but not only that, we're now into normal number cycles. You know, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 now. Let's look at the shelf as it is today. So here is my Thundercats display. I put up this shelf in 2020, getting ready for this. And for a while, there was only 5 figures, or no, the 7 Mattel figures. Then I swapped in the Super 7 ones. Then I finally got in Wave 3, and now we've added Wave 2 and 4. It's finally filling out. It looks great. It'll be totally disrupted when the Thunder Tank comes out, which is by no means a bad thing. I'm just really happy when we got the Thundercats in the middle here. I might change the arrangement on them. I'm not 100% happy with it. We got Mumm-Ra forms to the left. We've got villains off to the right. I got that Cat's Lair backdrop I printed out. You know, really cool stuff. Oh yeah, those are the big Mezco, like, vinyl figures of Lion-O and Mumm-Ra. But yeah, there it is. There is the Thundercats display as it is right now. So thanks for journeying this journey of 4 Thundercats reviews back to back. There will be more Thundercats reviews in the future, but not on this nice little weekly schedule we've been doing, because we'll see when Cheetara ships, because I think she's coming next, then maybe the Thunder Tank, then maybe Wave 5. So more on the horizon. Stay tuned for what's coming up in the future. So that does it for Wave 2 of Thundercats, and we're caught up now. I've reviewed everything that's out, unless the Thunder Tank got a shipping notice while I was filming this. Stay tuned, we have the Thunder Tank, Wave 5, Wave 5.5, and I'm sure there's more waves to come. So stay tuned, hit subscribe, notification bell, check out my other videos on the channel in the meantime while waiting for more Thundercats videos. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your favorite figure of the wave was. Also be sure to hit that like button, it helps the video get recommended to more people and grows the channel further. So thank you all for tuning in, and thanks to everyone that already likes, comments, and subscribes on every video. I appreciate you all. Also check out HeroClub at hero-club.com for news and more, and my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, Thundercats, ho!